What is happening, everybody? It is Thursday evening. We are just a few hours away from Thursday Night Football, where you have the Saints going to be taking on the Jaguars tonight. We've got somewhat of status up in the air for Trevor Lawrence, but it seems like we could feel pretty confident about saying that he is going to play today. And also, what we could feel confident about is that you guys get one free week of the Stokastic Sims package when you sign up at OwnersBox, the sponsor of this show. You sign up at OwnersBox using that link that we have below. 1 week totally free of our NFL package. So that includes our contest generator. It includes our Sims package. And that is what we're going to be talking about here on the show, is we're going to be building some lineups for Thursday Night Football for the main slate. If you guys have any questions about this weekend's games or tonight's games, you could throw those into the YouTube chat. We could definitely answer them as we go here. But where I'm going to start is by opening up the contest generator and looking at OwnersBox for tonight. So select OwnersBox here. We'll go to Thursday Night Football. We'll build out some lineups, and then we'll see what kind of results we get. What is popping up for Thursday Night Football? If you guys are playing tonight's slate, no matter what site you are playing on, we're going to help identify some of the best options, and starting right here by building out these lineups, and then we're going to simulate them out. If you guys could be so kind, as you're watching this video, it is totally free, all of this content. So if you could help support it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, so we've got lineups built out here. Now let's sim them for OwnersBox. What's the payout for OwnersBox tonight? All right, we have OwnersBox Thursday Night Football. It is, let's see, so $6K to first place, $30,000 prize pool. So go 20% to first. Now we'll run the simulation here and see what ends up popping up most meaningfully here. And we'll look at who we're getting to in the SuperFlex spot, who we're getting into the other options, and who just the overall best plays are for the day. And like I said, any questions you guys have at all for tonight's game or the main slate in general, throw them into the YouTube chat. We can answer them over the course of the show. But let's go here and favorite. What is the max entry? What is the most amount of lineups you could play? It's 71. So enter custom amount, 71. So we've got the top 71 lineups have been favorited. But one thing I do like to do as well, by the way, shout out to Tanner Verstrat in the YouTube chat who said, like it up. Thank you for the support, Tanner. Do appreciate it. And everybody, yeah, show some love. Hit that like button. Tenderly, though. Don't hit it. Just gently push it. You don't want to hurt it. Dupes. What are the lineups that are expected to be duped most heavily tonight on OwnersBox? Let's see. So the most popular projected lineup that we have, Alvin Kamara, Shaheed, Carr, Ingram, and Olave. So we got Kamara in the multiplier spot. And yeah, some of the lineups that are expected to be duped pretty heavily are still showing up in our best lineups here. And one thing you do run into on OwnersBox is you will see more dupes show up for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's no defenses and there's no kickers. That's actually two reasons right there. But it does somewhat limit some of the options. It creates a little bit more overlap, which is why some of these lineups are expected to be duped so many times. But then also, because the prize pools don't pay out quite as top heavy as on other sites, you do see that some of these lineups that even though they're expected to be duped heavily, they'll show up more frequently as being an optimal lineup, even though on DraftKings, if we're playing a tournament, we generally want to avoid dupes. It's less so important on OwnersBox, where not quite as top heavy of a payout. And then in addition to that, the amount of entries in the field, it's 2,300 as opposed to another site where it'd be, millions of people or hundreds of millions is a little bit of an exaggeration, but tens to hundreds of thousands of people you see in these big tournaments on FanDuel or DraftKings. So with that in mind, you're not going to run into these trains where it's like 100 people playing the same lineup when you're actually on OwnersBox. But anyway, lineups that are expected to be most popular. We have the Kamara, Shaheed, Carr, Ingram, Olave lineup. So no Lawrence in that one. No Lawrence in this one either, by the way. Olave, Shaheed, Carr, Ingram, Kamara. So this is actually the same lineup as the one above. The one difference is this lineup has Olave in the SuperFlex multiplier spot, whereas the one up top had Kamara in the SuperFlex multiplier spot. Other lineups are expected to do pretty heavily. A lot of them with Kamara, actually, here. Kamara, Surprisingly, a Michael Thomas in the multiplier spot. Here's a Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, ETN. Let's look at the exposures here. Exposures that we're getting to over on OwnersBox. And you'll see that we're getting to a lot of Trevor Lawrence. Shaheed, actually a lot of Shaheed here. 42.3% of our lineups he ended up in here. Looks like, what else? Ingram, Thomas, where's Carr? Yeah, so we've got both quarterbacks are two of the 5 most rostered players. And then in addition to that, we're getting to a lot of pass catchers. Shaheed, Ingram, Thomas, Kirk. So not as much of the running backs on the whole, right? Because we've got ETN here in 29.6% of our top lineups. And then we have Kamara in just 18.3%. So it tells me what? The focus here is going to be more so on the passing game than the running attacks of these two teams. Shout out to Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, who's saying, hey, in the YouTube chat. Hey, Daniel, thank you for showing up. Appreciate you for being in YouTube chat and showing some support. Let's see how the SuperFlex ownership is looking, where we have the most of Derek Carr, followed by Trevor Lawrence, which makes sense when you consider that a lot of our exposure here is in the passing game, right? So if we're going to be getting to the pass catchers, Shaheed, Ingram, Michael Thomas, Christian Kirk's our most rostered skill position players instead of the running backs, then yeah, we do want to be playing more of those quarterbacks in those multiplier spots, because it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to be getting to a ton of exposure to the wide receivers, not a lot of exposure to the running backs, and then not be heavily exposed to the quarterback. So I like that we're getting to a good amount of the QBs here. We do have more of, let's see, so we have Trevor Lawrence in 63% of lineups overall, and then Derek Carr in about 50% of lineups. Although with that said, we do have more of Carr in the captain spot. Not a massive amount more, but a little bit more, right? 19.7% of our top 71 lineups here end up having Derek Carr in that super flex spot, whereas Trevor Lawrence 15.5%. I Campsy saying that he definitely needs to get some insight on picks. Yeah, man, any questions you have, just throw them into YouTube chat, whether it's about pass catchers, whether it's about the running backs, quarterbacks, whatever it might be, throw it into YouTube chat and I could answer any questions you have. Let's see, who are some of the cheaper players that we're getting to here on OwnersBox, and maybe the field might not be playing. So we are getting to a lot of Shaheed. He's fairly cheap, but I think the field is going to be on him. The field is going to be on Shaheed today, but still a pretty good cheap option to get to. And our most rostered skill position here on OwnersBox, the only player we're getting to more is Trevor Lawrence at QB. So Shaheed popping up a whole bunch here. And then we got some cheap guys here. Jamal Agnew, he's in nearly 20% of lineups. Foster Moreau in 18% of lineups. So if you're looking for like a really low-owned punt today, these are a couple of guys that are standing out to some extent. And then what about anybody else? Yeah, nothing like meaningful, whatever. Here or there, you get 1 or 2% exposure to a couple of these lesser named options, like a Luke Farrell or a Keith Kirkwood, but that's not really anything significant. That's just like in a mass entry, large field set of lineups, like you are going to be getting to a couple lineups here or there with some players who are off the beaten path. Guys here that we are not getting a whole bunch of, Calvin Ridley, 21.1%. I assume he's going to be quite a bit more popular than that. If you guys have watched any of my showdown content today, or just any time I've talked about the Jaguars this year, I personally have always leaned towards Christian Kirk this year over Calvin Ridley. Ridley's had a couple of really good standout games, but for the season, Christian Kirk has drawn more targets than Calvin Ridley has, which by my definition makes him number one wide receiver for the Jaguars, not Calvin Ridley. And then also there's just a little bit more of a rapport with Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence, with them having played together last year as well. And then you also get the fact that Christian Kirk is a cheaper player than Calvin Ridley on DFS sites. So all that being put together, Christian Kirk is my preferred option to stack with Trevor Lawrence over Calvin Ridley. See that we got Ridley here in 21.1% of lineups, a little bit more of Kirk, just under 30%. So we're getting to Lawrence stacked with Ingram and Kirk the most. We do have some lineups here with Travis Etienne as well, almost 30% of them, but I do assume that's going to mean that we get underweight to the field on Etienne, who I think is going to be more popular than that. As for Derek Carr, we're stacking him most frequently with Rashid Shaheed and Michael Thomas. As for the super flex spots, who are not the quarterbacks. So multiplier players that we're getting to outside of them, double-digit exposure to Kamara at 14%. I assume that's going to be underweight to him. 11% of ETN, likely underweight to him as well. Michael Thomas, nearly 10% of Michael Thomas. He's not going to be all that popular in the multiplier spot today. I do think Michael Thomas is a pretty reasonable way to differentiate some of those lineups. So I like getting to Michael Thomas. We're also getting some exposure here to Chris Olave as well. Olave here projected for 20.87 fantasy points in the multiplier spot. Michael Thomas projected for 18.96. So if you guys have any questions about Showdown or tonight's game, throw them into the chat now. I'm about to move on to the main slate, but I mean, we could always also circle back on this and I just answer some of the questions you guys might have without looking at the data in front of me. Somebody we're getting to some lineups here, but not all that much. Taysom Hill. I hate Taysom Hill. And one thing I would actually kind of be apt to do is just look at Taysom Hill and do an ROI boost and just downgrade him. If I was building lineups in here right now, and yeah, if I was to do this, do like a negative 15%, and then refavorite my top 71 lineups. Let's see what we end up getting to here instead of Hill. And then actually didn't impact any of the Taysom Hill lineups. Impossible. This guy just a thorn in my side. Can't get rid of Taysom Hill here. But I would be, if I was entering these lineups like right at this second, I would do a little bit more to make sure that Taysom Hill wasn't showing up in lineups. But let's go ahead and look at the main slate now. And one thing that does really differentiate OwnersBox from the other sites is that SuperFlex. So you could play a quarterback over, I'm sorry, you could play two quarterbacks over at OwnersBox. So you could play a QB, another QB, and then make like double stacks, or you can make like one big game stack with both quarterbacks from the same game. We've got a Stokastic here in the YouTube chat wants to know on OwnersBox, the match deposit. Do you get it if you play? Correct. So the way it works is it's a drip bonus up to $500. So if you deposit $500, you get 500 OwnersBox is what they're called from OwnersBox. And the way those work is it's a drip where it's like for every $25 you play, you get $1. I think that's the number. It's either $20 you get $1 back or $25 you get $1 back. And then the more that you play on OwnersBox, the more that multiplier goes up. So as your experience level goes up, then you could have a drip of like 5 or 6% or whatever the number ends up going up to there. But yeah, when you take advantage of the match deposit, it's going to drip into your account, but it's not something you can immediately play right out of the gate. And that is the offer they have here. So a couple things, not only do you get the match deposit of up to $500, but you do also get one free week of all the data and tools that we have at Stokastic.com. Let's see. I'm not going to change anything with the stack types. We'll just generate lineups here for the main slate and see what ends up popping up here for OwnersBox. And then follow up there. Stokastic said, thank you. And you're welcome. I appreciate any questions you guys have, because I know a lot of times people have these questions and instead of asking them, they will just sit there and be afraid to ask the question or sit there quietly. Always you could ask the questions. Not a big deal. All right. So building out the lineups here. And actually, I'll say after they're done being built out, I'm actually going to also look for some bets that I might like for tonight. That's one thing that I think I've found is like, I don't know if you guys care about it or not, but at least one thing that I think is a good use of the time while waiting for the lineups to be built and then simmed out, let's try to find some bets that I might like for tonight's game. With that in mind, do you guys have any bets that you like? Is there anything that you guys feel like in terms of a side of the game you like? Do you prefer the Saints? Do you prefer the Jaguars? Let me know if you have any of those thoughts. But in the interim, let me go ahead and look for bets. So going to simulate out these lineups. And what is the payout to first for this weekend? Let's see. 20% to first. So if we go 20% to first, now we'll sim out the lineups. So what's happening right here, if you guys aren't familiar with our tools, is these lineups that I just built. So I built 10,000 lineups in the contest generator, and now these lineups play against each other 40,000 times in a tournament setting with a 20% payout to first. And then we could sort our lineups by simulated ROI to see which ones are expected to be most profitable. Some questions that we have here. This is from first Stokastic. Says, can't wait to see 2 defensive touchdowns by the Saints defense. Yeah, I hate defense. One thing that I really do like about OwnersBox, they have the SuperFlex as opposed to having to play defenses. I hate defenses in everything. I hate them in yearly fantasy. I hate them in daily fantasy. Anything that involves defenses, I don't like it. Mostly because it's super random where it's like, hey, look, this guy returned a punt for a touchdown. Now you have this defense that might be super cheap on a site, all of a sudden ends up being optimal. Yeah, I don't really like it. So anyway, to your point, can't wait to see 2 defensive touchdowns by the Saints. I know you're tongue in cheek. I could wait to see it. I don't need to see it on any kind of slates here, really. Anthony Range is asking who is the Jaguars' backup quarterback if Lawrence doesn't make it. CJ Beathard is expected to be the backup today. I wouldn't play him in contests today, especially because Lawrence seems like he's going to be good to go. I'll read off all the recent notes that we have here, or I should say tweets that we have from Adam Schefter. Schefter's last tweet here. Doug Peterson told Ed Werder that he expects the Jaguars QB Trevor Lawrence will start tonight against the Saints pending a pregame workout. Lawrence has reported improvement in his mild left knee sprain. Not going to tell you with 100% confidence he's out there, but at this point, I'm like 99.9% sure Lawrence plays. But if he's not out there, then it's going to be CJ Beathard. That's what we've seen. And I'll pull up a tweet for that as well so I could read it off just so can make sure that we have all of our facts correct from everything. And here we go. From Tom Pellisario, Trevor Lawrence listed as questionable for tonight, is pushing to play. And then he says CJ Beathard is the backup. And then Nathan Rourke signed to the active roster Wednesday. So if it was an emergency scenario, it would be Rourke who steps up. But yeah, CJ Beathard, the other quarterback that would be on the field today for the Jaguars in a scenario where either 1, Trevor Lawrence isn't able to play, or 2, Trevor Lawrence gets hurt during the game, isn't able to finish. It would be Beathard who ends up coming in. And that is the follow-up here from Anthony Range saying, I'm thinking he might not be able to make it through the game, not worrying about him starting. So here's where I land on backup quarterbacks in showdown contests. It's an uphill battle, massive uphill battle for them to end up being optimal because you need a few things to go right. First off, you need the starting quarterback to get hurt. Not only do you need the starting quarterback to get hurt, though, you need them to get hurt fairly early in the game. Because let's say Lawrence gets hurt in the third quarter. How many fantasy points are you getting out of Beathard in just the fourth quarter for him to be in an optimal lineup when you've already had Trevor Lawrence play through 3 quarters, right? So that's what you need. You need Lawrence to actually get hurt. You need him to get hurt early in the game as well. If he gets hurt late in the game, that's not really going to do Beathard much good. Here's something else that you also need to happen. You actually need CJ Beathard to play well. There's a reason he's a backup. And he's been a backup in the year for many years now. I could pull up CJ Beathard's numbers as well. I know I said I was going to talk about bets, but now I'm kind of getting sidetracked on other stuff, which I do think is important to talk about for today. But CJ Beathard in his outings for his career. Let's see. When has he actually started? I'm pulling this up on a separate computer over here. So last time we saw CJ Beathard start was in 2020 for the 49ers. Because the other point I'm going to make is that even if Lawrence gets hurt in the first quarter and Beathard comes in, it doesn't mean Beathard just becomes optimal. He's supposed to be one of the higher scoring fantasy players in the game, has to play reasonably well, which has not been something we've seen from Beathard in the past. The last game that he started in the NFL was not really a terrible start, actually. He ended up throwing for 273 yards and a touchdown against the Seahawks. That would be good for showdown. But you look at some of his other starts from that same season. Against the Cowboys, 100 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Against the Dolphins, 94 passing yards, 1 touchdown. A start against the Eagles, 138 passing yards, no touchdowns. So a lot of his career outings haven't even been good enough to be in an optimal situation in a showdown contest. So this is what you're running into and why I don't think that even if you're saying that you don't think that Lawrence is going to be able to finish out the game, like you still are running into a lot of obstacles for Beathard to end up being optimal. Even if he's low owned, oftentimes I think that the quarterbacks who are backups still end up being more popular than they should be because the percentage outcome of all these things coming into place is still pretty low. Lost Astic saying, just play Taysom Hill if you want to play a backup quarterback. At least he plays regardless. Yeah, I hate Taysom Hill. But to what you're saying also, yeah, if Derek Carr was to get hurt, and then if, like you just get into like a backup situation, then like, yeah, maybe Taysom Hill ends up being a quarterback, but wouldn't really plan for that. Some other comments we have in the YouTube chat. Vic David Figueroa saying Lawrence will play and hit it out till he gets squid chopped. What is squid chopped? Did I just like say something? Is this some like weird sexual innuendo that I don't know about? Did I just have like an Eric Lindquist moment where I just said something I wasn't supposed to? What is squid chopped? I'm going to look that up. Squid chopped. Squid chopped. Football. Is this all right, nothing came up. I Googled squid chop football, nothing came up. Ask Dave about it, Greg. Who's Dave? Which Dave? You're Vic David Figueroa. Somebody else in YouTube chat. What's a squid chop? Can anybody else illuminate me on the topic? Anyway, let's go ahead and look at, Laffy. Who calls Laffy Dave? He doesn't even have to be honest, I don't think he has a first name or a last name. He's like Cher or Madonna. Laffy's a one-name man. One name. Laffy is Laffy. He's not Dave. What are we doing here? It's like calling, Messi Lionel or something. Nobody calls him that. His parents probably call him by his last name. All right, let's go ahead and look at some of these lineups that we built out for the main slate on Sunday. I'll favorite the top 150 lineups and see what we're getting to. So the number one projected lineup for the Sunday main slate over on OwnersBox, it is a double QB stack of Patrick Mahomes and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is with Wan'Dale Robinson, Mahomes with Kelsey. Kind of makes sense, right? Anytime I'm stacking Patrick Mahomes, it is almost always going to be with Travis Kelsey for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's by far the best pass catcher the Chiefs have, but then point two also, like what the hell do you do with the wide receivers for the Chiefs? I never know what to make of it because the ball gets spread out so much. They have a really, really shitty wide receiver core as far as talent goes, and it's just really hard to know who's going to get the targets. And then oftentimes it's spread out and just none of them have a big game. So anyway, if I'm playing Mahomes lineups this weekend, my preference is to stack him with Travis Kelsey. Let's look at some of our exposures. We'll go position by position. And just like 5 minutes left to go here. And then we are going to be done for this show. And if you guys haven't done yet, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you guys are looking for a more in-depth breakdown for DraftKings and FanDuel for the showdown slate tonight, the aforementioned Dave Laffy, whoever this character is, Laffy in my book, he's going to be with Neil Orfield from 7:15 p.m. Eastern time to 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, doing live before lock on the YouTube channel. So a couple hours and those guys will be on. But anyway, top plays for the Sunday main slate. What are we getting to here? I haven't looked a ton at the main slate yet, so this is going to be new information for me as well in terms of what we're getting to. Start with quarterbacks. Position, QB. All right, so the follow-up here is Vic David Figueroa saying, it's when you chop a squid to instant death. I know you said instinct. I assume you meant instant. So Laffy uses the term when someone gets sacked now. Gotcha. Is that I don't eat squid because, well, first of all, I eat food like a 5-year-old. Like I'm chicken nuggets, French fries, tater tots, hamburgers, fish. Nah, not messing with it. So I don't know what you do with squid, but that seems pretty crazy. So to eat squid, you get it like live and you chop it in half. No, thank you. I'm not eating food. I'm not eating a squid after killing it on my plate. Same, like if you guys have ever seen like the raw fish, raw sushi, where it's still like alive when it gets to the table, grosses me out. Quarterbacks I'm getting to the most of. Calamari. Is that what you do with calamari? Fuck that. Quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson. So those are the 4 QBs that we're getting to north of 20% here over on OwnersBox. And then as for other quarterbacks, we're getting to Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, Kenny Pickett. It's pretty spread out here. It's pretty spread out. There's not like one quarterback we're getting a massive amount of exposure to. There have been other slates where it's been like, hey, Kirk Cousins in like 50 or 60% of lineups or something along those lines. Nobody's standing out to that extent here over on OwnersBox. I do like the Buck stacks as a whole as a contrarian play this weekend. And you've got everywhere. Baker Mayfield reasonably priced, Mike Evans reasonably priced, Chris Godwin reasonably priced. It's something that I really do like getting to. But Vic David Figueroa saying, ask Lofty to send me the video. Can I just Google it also? Is this something that happened, or is this like a specific video? I don't know. I'm not eating it though. No fucking way. Does Lofty eat it too? Or does he just kill the animals? Running backs. So these are the running backs we're getting the most exposure to. And there's a couple of things that stand out here. There are so many running back injuries now. So Zach Evans, this is very much in flux. Like we've got Zach Evans projected to be chalky this weekend, but Henderson was just signed, right? We're going to need more information on what the backfield split is going to look like for the Rams. My personal inclination is that Darrell Henderson is going to be more involved than people realize right now. And if that ends up being the case, I think Zach Evans is somebody who's going to ultimately make sense to be underweight to the field too. Now we'll see what his ownership is and once we get more information. But at least as of right now, even though I'm getting to in a bunch of lineups, he's projected for 38% ownership. I'm more apt to be underweight to that number on Zach Evans and instead looking to play other running backs because I do think Henderson is going to be involved. Even though he was signed recently by the team, he's super familiar with the Rams and their system. He's been there for the last few years. He's been heavily involved in the offense. He's familiar with Sean McVay. I think McVay is going to have a level of confidence in him, even though they didn't bring him back to the team this year, just to give him reps right out of the gate. So Zach Evans is pretty flimsy chalk, in my opinion. Other running backs we're getting to, Dante Foreman, same issue here with the Bears as it is for the Rams. Just everybody's out for the Bears. I know that Foreman didn't have the best game in the world last week, but he had opportunities. He had one goal line player who was stuffed at the 1 yard line. If it was not for that, Foreman's outcome would have looked quite a bit better. And then Jerome Ford, who's also been a standout for the Browns ever since the injury to Nick Chubb. I do like getting to him this weekend. Wide receivers, we're getting to Devontae Adams. Mike Evans, talked about liking him as a contrarian option before. One thing that I think is interesting about Devontae Adams, we have to pay attention to what ends up happening. He's made it very vocal. He's unhappy with his situation in Las Vegas. In addition to that, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out today. This could go a couple of ways. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders keep Adams out of this weekend's game and put him on the trade block, which would obviously make him not somebody we want to roster. Something else that could happen as well, though, we could see Adams get peppered with a ton of targets to try to keep him satisfied. If that's the case, I think he's somebody who's worth paying up for and is a little bit contrarian as well. Not contrarian, but like not massively popular with ownership in the teens. Getting overweight to Mike Evans here. Another pay up option, Stephon Diggs, who stands out, as well as Keenan Allen. And then Zay Flowers, Kendrick Bourne, a couple of cheaper wide receivers. Although Zay Flowers more in the mid-range, Kendrick Bourne more on the cheaper end. Now we'll look at tight ends we're getting to, and then we will be done for this show. Tight ends getting to a bunch of Luke Musgrave, and then followed by the studs here in Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. More or less looks okay to me. I don't know that I necessarily want to be this heavily invested in Luke Musgrave, but he is super cheap over on OwnersBox. And there just aren't a lot of great looking tight ends. It's either Musgrave or you're paying up for Kelce or Andrews. Outside of that, hard to find a whole lot to love. So guys, that is going to bring me to the end of the show. If you want to sign up at OwnersBox, use the link below because it's going to get you 1 free week of our NFL package. So everything you need to build winning lineups on every site, wherever it is you play, whether it's OwnersBox, DraftKings, FanDuel, you sign up using that link below, 1 free week of our Stokastic package, contest generator so you can build your lineups on our site, Sims tools so you can simulate all of those lineups, and then also stuff like the player projections, ownership projections, that is all included as well. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out our Thursday night football breakdown, 7:15 to 8:15 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Good luck, guys. See you later.